There is a kind of silence that disappears into nothing, and there is a kind of silence that stays inside a woman's mind long after you stop speaking. Most men think going silent is just about not texting, not calling, not reacting, and not chasing, but real silence is deeper than that. Real silence is not the absence of words. It is the presence of self-control. It is the moment a man stops trying to force his place in her mind and begins returning to his own life with dignity. And when a woman has been used to your attention, your warmth, your explanations, your emotional availability, and your willingness to keep the connection alive, your silence can become something she cannot easily ignore. At first, she may act like nothing changed. She may post normally, laugh normally, answer others normally, and tell herself your silence does not matter, but her mind still notices the pattern has been broken. The man who used to reach out is not reaching. The man who used to ask what happened is not asking. The man who used to soften the distance is no longer running toward it. And that break in the pattern creates a question, not a loud question, not always an emotional one at first, but a quiet question that follows her into the day. Why is he not reacting anymore? That question is powerful because it does not come from your words. It comes from your absence. When you talk too much, she can manage the conversation. She can dismiss your feelings, answer only what she wants, or tell herself you are being too emotional. But when you go silent calmly, she has nothing to argue with, nothing to push against, nothing to label. She has to sit with the space where your energy used to be, and inside that space, her mind begins filling in what your words no longer provide. She wonders if you lost interest. She wonders if you finally got tired. She wonders if someone else has your attention. She wonders if you saw her behavior clearly and decided to protect your peace. But understand this, silence only makes her think about you when it comes from strength. If your silence is secretly begging for a reaction, she may feel the weakness behind it. If your silence is a punishment, she may feel the bitterness. If your silence is only a strategy to make her anxious, it loses its purity. The silence that stays in her mind is the silence of a man who is not trying to hurt her, but is no longer willing to hurt himself. It is the silence of a man who has stopped chasing confusion, stopped rewarding inconsistency, and stopped treating her mood like the center of his universe. This is why she cannot stop thinking about you when you go silent. Not because silence is magic, but because silence creates contrast. It makes her compare the warmth she once had with the quiet she feels now. It makes her notice the effort you used to give without making speeches about it. It makes her replay the last moments and wonder if she took something valuable too lightly. And if your presence had peace, depth, calmness, and masculine control, then your absence does not feel empty. It feels like something rare has stepped away. So in this video, we are going to break down why your silence stays in her mind, why she starts replaying the last interaction, why your absence creates questions your words never could, why calm distance makes you harder to forget, and why the strongest silence is not the silence that tries to control her. It is the silence that proves you finally control yourself. Stay until the end because the final lesson is the one most men miss. She does not keep thinking about the man who disappears to play games. She keeps thinking about the man who goes silent because his self-respect became louder than his need to be chosen. Before we start, a quick reminder. The real transformation doesn't happen on YouTube. It happens inside the community. If these videos have opened your eyes, what's inside will rebuild your mindset completely. It's not just a course, it's a brotherhood, a private space where men master attraction, emotional control, and the psychology of power. You don't join for a month, you join for life. Every future course, book, and lesson is yours forever. No subscriptions, no limits, just one decision that changes your direction. If you're serious about growth, discipline, and purpose, click the link below. Join the community, enroll once, grow forever. Let's dive in. Section 1. Silence breaks the pattern she used to control. Silence breaks the pattern she used to control because before you went quiet, she may have known exactly how to move you. If she became distant, you moved closer. If she replied dry, you tried to bring warmth back. If she disappeared for a while, you started wondering what happened. If she gave mixed signals, you worked harder to create clarity. And without realizing it, you trained the dynamic to revolve around her emotional shifts. Her silence became the button, and your reaction became the proof that the button still worked. That is why silence becomes powerful when it comes from self-respect. It removes the reaction she expected. At first, she may not understand the change. She may think you are upset. She may think you are trying to get attention. She may think you will come back after a few hours because that is what happened before. But when your silence stays calm, when you do not post hidden pain, when you do not send one more message, when you do not chase the conversation back to life, the old pattern starts to collapse. She realizes she can no longer predict you as easily. And the moment a woman cannot predict your emotional reaction, her mind begins to study you differently. This is not about punishing her. A high-value man does not go silent to make a woman suffer. He goes silent because he refuses to keep giving energy to a pattern that makes him smaller. He understands that if every cold mood from her creates more effort from him, then he is rewarding the very behavior that hurts his peace. So instead of giving more, he stops. Not with hate, not with drama, just with calm control. And that calmness is what makes the silence feel serious. Imagine she used to send a short reply and the old version of you would immediately ask, "Are you okay?" Or "Did I do something?" Or "Why are you acting different?" But this time you read the energy and do not chase it. You let the conversation breathe. You return to your work, your body, your mission, your life. Now she is left with the space she created, and inside that space, she feels the difference between controlling your reaction and losing access to it. That is why she starts thinking about you. Not because you forced your way into her mind, but because you stopped being easy to move. Your silence tells her that your peace is no longer controlled by her mood. And when a woman realizes that, she begins to wonder what changed inside the man she thought she understood. Section 2. Your absence creates questions she cannot answer easily. Your absence creates questions she cannot answer easily because silence removes the information she used to depend on. When you were always explaining, always texting, always reaching out, and always trying to make the connection feel safe again, she never had to wonder too much about where you stood. Your words gave her answers. Your effort gave her certainty. Your emotional availability gave her proof that she still had access to you. But when you go silent, those answers disappear. Suddenly, she has to read the space instead of reading your messages. And space is more dangerous than words because space makes the mind imagine. She may begin asking herself questions she does not want to admit. Did he finally lose interest? Is he talking to someone else? Did I push him too far? Was he more valuable than I realized? Did he stop caring, or did he finally choose himself? These questions become powerful because they are not coming from pressure. You are not forcing her to think. You are not begging her to understand. You are not sending emotional paragraphs hoping she feels guilty. The questions rise inside her because your silence leaves an open loop, and the mind hates unfinished emotional stories. This is why words can sometimes weaken the effect. When you rush to explain your silence, you close the mystery too quickly. When you tell her exactly how hurt you are, she may feel your pain, but she also regains emotional certainty. When you say, "I'm not texting because I need space," you may be honest, but you also remove the question. A high-value man does not always need to explain every internal movement. Sometimes his behavior speaks enough. Sometimes his absence says, "I noticed the energy and I adjusted." Imagine she expects you to send a message after she goes cold. You do not. Then she expects you the next day. Still nothing. She checks your world and you are not performing sadness. You are not throwing hints. You are simply living. That kind of absence becomes difficult to decode because it feels clean. It does not look like revenge. It does not look like weakness. It looks like a man who has quietly taken his energy back. And that is what keeps her thinking. Your silence gives her no easy label. She cannot easily call you desperate because you are not chasing. She cannot easily call you bitter because you are not attacking. She cannot easily call you careless because your past effort proved you cared. So now she has to sit with the hardest possibility. Maybe you cared deeply, but you respected yourself more. And that question alone can stay in her mind longer than any message you could have sent. Section 3. She starts replaying the last moment between you. When you go silent, she starts replaying the last moment between you because silence leaves the story unfinished. If you argue, explain, or chase, she can focus on your reaction. She can tell herself you are emotional, too invested, too sensitive, or too easy to move. But when you say nothing and remove your energy calmly, there is no dramatic reaction for her to hold against you. There is only the memory of the last interaction and the question of what changed after it. That is when her mind begins going backward. She replays the last message, the last tone, the last silence, the last time she acted cold, the last time she gave less than you deserved. And suddenly those small moments start feeling heavier than they did before. At first, she may tell herself it means nothing. She may say he is just busy, or he is trying to get my attention, or he will come back. But the longer your silence remains steady, the more her mind starts searching for the reason. She remembers how you usually responded. She remembers how you used to soften things. She remembers how you would normally reach out to repair the distance, but now you are not doing that. So she begins to wonder whether the last moment was the moment you finally saw the pattern clearly. Maybe she was too cold. Maybe she pushed too far. Maybe she treated your presence like something that would always return. Maybe your silence is not a game at all. Maybe it is the result of a man finally choosing peace. Imagine she sent a dry reply after you gave genuine energy. The old you might have chased the warmth back into the conversation, but this time you simply stopped feeding the imbalance. No complaint, no emotional lecture, no desperate attempt to make her understand, just silence. Now that dry reply is no longer just a message, it becomes a memory she has to sit with. It becomes the last thing she gave before your energy disappeared, and that can make her question whether she underestimated the effect of her own behavior. This is why silence creates mental replay. It gives her space to feel the natural consequence of the last interaction. A high-value man does not force her to replay it. He does not send reminders. He does not say, "Remember how you treated me." He lets the silence hold the mirror. And if there is still emotion inside her, that mirror becomes difficult to ignore. So when she starts replaying the last moment, your absence becomes more powerful than another explanation. Because now the lesson is not coming from your mouth, it is coming from her own memory. And lessons that come from inside a person often hit deeper than anything you could say. Section 4. Your calm silence makes her compare your presence to everyone else's noise. Your calm silence makes her compare your presence to everyone else's noise because when you stop speaking, she begins to feel the difference between attention and emotional weight. Attention can come from anywhere. A man can compliment her, react to her story, send a message, ask to see her, or try to entertain her for a moment. But emotional weight is different. Emotional weight is the feeling a man leaves behind when his presence had calmness, depth, maturity, and self-control. And if you were that kind of man, your silence does not simply remove your words. It removes a certain kind of peace from her world. At first, the noise around her may feel exciting. New attention can feel like proof that she is desired. Other men may try harder, talk louder, chase faster, and make themselves more available. But after a while, noise becomes easy to recognize. A man who wants access too quickly feels different from a man who had standards. A man who compliments her constantly feels different from a man who understood her quietly. A man who chases every mood feels different from a man who could stay calm when she became difficult. And that is when comparison begins. She may not admit it, but she starts sensing the difference between men who only want her attention and the man whose presence made her feel something deeper. Imagine she is surrounded by messages, but none of them feel grounded. They make her smile for a second, but they do not stay with her. They flatter her, but they do not calm her. They want her, but they do not understand her. Then your silence appears in her mind like a contrast. You are not there pushing, proving, or begging. You are not trying to compete with the noise. You are simply absent with dignity. And sometimes the man who is no longer speaking becomes more powerful than the men who are saying too much. This is why calm silence can make her think about you. It separates you from the crowd. It tells her that your attention was not cheap, your energy was not desperate, and your presence was not something she could replace with a few compliments from someone else. A high-value man does not need to fight for attention in a noisy room. He lets his absence remind her that peace is rarer than attention. So when you go silent, do not compete with the noise around her. Let the noise reveal itself. Let the difference become obvious. Let her feel that what she lost was not just communication, but a presence that had weight. Because when a woman compares your calmness to everyone else's hunger, she may realize that the man saying nothing is the one she cannot stop thinking about. Section 5. She wonders if you finally became stronger than your feelings. When you go silent, she may start wondering if you finally became stronger than your feelings, and that thought can affect her deeply because she may have already known you cared. She may have known you were emotionally invested. She may have known you would normally reach out, explain, check in, or try to repair the connection. So when you suddenly stop reacting, the question is not only, does he care anymore? The deeper question becomes, did he learn how to care without being controlled by it? That is the kind of shift that makes a woman see a man differently, because emotional control is rare. Many men feel strongly, but very few can stay grounded when those feelings are tested. At first, she may think your silence is temporary. She may think you are just upset, wounded, or trying to make a point. But when your silence does not turn into drama, when you do not post bitterness, when you do not send emotional hints, when you do not chase her attention through indirect moves, she begins to feel that something inside you has changed. You are not just holding back words, you are holding your frame. You are not just avoiding contact, you are choosing discipline. You are not just staying silent, you are showing that your emotions no longer have permission to drag you back into a dynamic that disrespects your peace. Imagine she expected the old version of you to return after a few hours. The old version who could not sit with uncertainty. The old version who felt heavy whenever she became distant. The old version who needed her reply to breathe calmly again. But this time he does not come back. Instead, she sees a man who keeps moving. A man who is still calm. A man whose life is not stopped because she became silent. And that can make her wonder if the man she thought she could emotionally move has finally become harder to move. This is where your silence becomes more than absence. It becomes evidence of growth. It tells her without saying it that your heart may still feel something, but your self-respect is now leading. And that is powerful because a man who is controlled by his feelings becomes predictable. But a man who can feel deeply and still choose himself becomes unforgettable. So, when she wonders if you became stronger than your feelings, let your consistency answer. Do not rush to prove you are changed. Do not explain your growth. Do not perform detachment. Just live with discipline. Stay calm. Keep your mission first, because the strongest silence is not the silence of a man who feels nothing. It is the silence of a man who feels everything, but no longer lets those feelings make him betray himself. Section 6. She begins to feel the fear of losing emotional access to you. When you go silent, she begins to feel the fear of losing emotional access to you. And this fear does not always appear like panic. It can start quietly, almost invisibly. She may notice that she no longer knows what you are thinking. She no longer knows whether you are still emotionally available. She no longer knows if one small message from her will bring back the old warmth, the old patience, the old attention, the old version of you who always made space for her. And when that certainty disappears, she starts to feel something she may not want to admit. Access to you was more valuable than she thought. Emotional access is deeper than texting. It means she could reach your heart. It means she could affect your mood. It means she could enter your mind with one message, one silence, one little change in energy. And when a woman gets used to that kind of access, she may start assuming it will always be there. She may think she can disappear and return. She may think she can be cold and still receive warmth. She may think she can give confusion and still receive clarity. But your silence changes the rules. It tells her without saying a word that your emotional world is no longer open without respect. Imagine she sends a small signal expecting the old you to respond with excitement. But this time your energy is calm. Maybe you respond politely but not deeply. Maybe you do not chase the conversation. Maybe you do not offer the same emotional access she used to receive instantly. That is when she feels the shift. You are not angry. You are not cruel. You are not trying to punish her, but the door is not as wide open as it used to be. And that difference creates tension because she realizes she may still be able to reach you, but she cannot reach you as easily. This is where your silence becomes powerful. It protects the deeper parts of you. It teaches that your warmth has value, your attention has weight, and your emotional availability is not something to be picked up and dropped whenever someone feels bored or uncertain. A high-value man does not lock his heart out of bitterness, but he does not leave it unlocked for inconsistency either. He gives access where there is respect. He gives depth where there is effort. He gives warmth where there is maturity. So when she begins to feel the fear of losing emotional access to you, do not rush to comfort her insecurity. Let her effort reveal whether she values that access enough to treat it differently. Because the man she cannot stop thinking about is often the man she realizes she can no longer enter without care. In short, the silence she cannot forget is not the silence of a man trying to punish her. It is not the silence of a man pretending to be cold while secretly waiting for her to save him from his own loneliness. It is not the silence of a man who disappears only to make her anxious. The silence that stays in her mind is the silence of a man who finally chose himself. A man who said enough, gave enough, explained enough, and reached a point where his self-respect became louder than his need to be understood. That kind of silence feels different because it carries maturity. It does not scream for attention. It does not beg from a distance. It does not ask her to feel guilty. It simply removes your energy from a place where it was not being valued correctly. And when a woman feels that shift, she may not admit it immediately, but she notices. She notices that you are not reacting like before. She notices that your peace is no longer controlled by her mood. She notices that the emotional access she once had is no longer automatic. She notices that the man who used to make everything easy has become harder to reach. Not because he hates her, but because he finally respects himself. And that is what makes her keep thinking. Your absence creates questions. Your calmness creates contrast. Your distance makes her replay the last moment. Your silence makes her compare your peace to everyone else's noise. She begins to wonder whether she misunderstood your patience, whether she took your warmth for granted, whether she confused your loyalty with weakness, and whether the man who once cared deeply has now become stronger than the feelings that used to pull him back. But listen carefully. The goal is not to live for the day she realizes your value. That would still make her the center. The goal is to become free from needing her realization at all. If she thinks about you, let her think. If she misses you, let her show effort. If she regrets losing access, let her actions prove it with maturity. But do not turn your silence into another form of waiting. Your silence should not be a cage where you sit hoping she returns. Your silence should be a doorway back into your mission, your discipline, your faith, your body, your peace, and your future. Because the strongest man is not the one who makes a woman think about him all night. The strongest man is the one who can sleep peacefully because he no longer has to chase someone who treated his presence like a guarantee. He does not need revenge. He does not need drama. He does not need to prove he is unbothered. He simply becomes unavailable to anything that pulls him away from himself. So remember this, when you go silent, do not go silent to control her. Go silent to control yourself. Go silent to stop over-explaining. Go silent music to stop rewarding inconsistency. Go silent to stop giving emotional access where there is no respect. Go silent to return to the man you were before you started begging to be chosen, because the silence she cannot forget is not empty. It is full of the value, dignity, and self-respect you finally stopped giving away for free. And before you leave, understand this deeply. Videos can open your eyes, but real transformation happens when you practice emotional control every day. Inside the community, we go deeper into silence, attraction, no contact, boundaries, self-respect, and the mindset of a man who never begs to be chosen. It is not just a course, it is a brotherhood. Join once, grow forever.